Good morning. This is the Plains World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also get more information, listen to previous shows at our website, which is in the back of me, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Alan Yeck, who's director at the Veterans Healing Farm in Hendersonville. And Al, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this.
Well, if all my fans, it could be a little wave, but I'll go for it.
Okay, well, that's Al Yeck. And Al Yeck served on active duty with the U.S. Marine Corps from September 79 to September 82. He was stationed in many bases throughout his military career, including Cuba, Hawaii, you name it, he was there, and he eventually achieved the rank of corporal. His family has a long military history of serving the country, creating the atmosphere of honor, dignity, respect, and appreciation for the freedoms we have. Good stuff, Al. When you were a kid, where were you raised?
I was born at Edwards Air Force Base. So my dad was a Army Air Corps, World War II, B-25, Burma, China, India. And after World War II, he got out and then was recalled for Korea and stayed in through Vietnam. So I'm the youngest of five boys, and the last one born at Edwards Air Force Base. And then a few years later, he moved to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, and he retired out of there. So my older brothers have multiple bases under their belt. I have those two, and I don't know if you can really count one as a baby, but but those are the two I
No,
was at.
which is cool, like you were saying about your older brothers, because many guys I speak with who are in the service, have 10 different places they've lived at. So you were pretty much
Yes.
to one base. And when you were a child growing up, did you always know you wanted to be in the military?
No, that was something that my oldest brother was a MASH chopper pilot in Vietnam. His wife was a MASH nurse in Vietnam. Next brother was Air Force Vietnam during Vietnam, but he was killed in a car wreck returning to base. Next brother was Army, and he enlisted before he drafted, so he was over in Korea. So I had all that history, but I didn't. And then my grandfather drove a tank in France in World War One. But I really hadn't thought about that until my senior year in high school. I was in downtown Dayton, and I walked past a window that had Marine Corps dress blues in it, and then that was it. That's what I wanted to do.
So you went in after high school, you enlisted,
Yes,
right? And then you served, those are the years you served right after high school.
right after high school, and then my field in the Marine Corps was 2651 or Special Intelligence Telecommunications. So there's not a lot of, it's not like you get out and you work for IBM with that.
Right.
So the State Department picked me up, and I worked for embassies and consulates doing the same thing as a communications officer, encrypting, decrypting messages between various places for the Department of State for 7 years. And during that time, I was in Africa, the Middle East, Central America, Europe, and some other continent somewhere. I can't remember right now, but yeah, all over.
So that's what you did after you got out of service. That took us through what year about?
That would have gone to after I transferred to um, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, 2 weeks before Saddam invaded Kuwait in the first Gulf War. So I was with state until the end of the Gulf War, and after that, I got out and then returned to school. And during that time, I also wrote a play called 2266 about the family members of Vietnam POW MIAs. And it went up off Broadway. And opening night, the guest of honor was General William C. Westmoreland.
Wow.
Came to New York to see it, and I still, to this day. So that would have been in 90. I want to say 93. So 30 years later, and meeting him and just looking in his eyes, and he was older at that time, but still solid steel, looking in those eyes, and he enjoyed the play, which was a big one.
By the way, when we're off there, talk to me a little bit about that play. I want to hear more because,
Okay.
well, I'm just curious. So it was done at one time. Was it done any time afterward?
No, just life I had a small child at the time, and basically I had to provide and pay bills and work that route. And it wasn't the theater is, especially as an introductory playwright, is not paying those type things. So, but after that, then I got into higher education, and then within that, I was there for 23 years. Started out making copies for Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, with the continuing ed office, and then into marketing, and then the program management, and then later with Bay College up in Escanaba, Michigan, as the executive director for workforce development, and then took on the business and technology for credit side. So then became the executive dean. And then after that, took my family, who had not been overseas with me before. I took them to the United Arab Emirates, where I started out as the chair of business at one of the women's colleges, and ended up then a few years later, I was the associate dean of business over 17 campuses, and then finished out the last year as what they would call, it's kind of like a provost over two campuses in Abu Dhabi, two women's campuses in Abu Dhabi. And then my son was starting high school, and at that time I said, well, I wanted him to have an American high school experience. And then after I got back, I was like, what the heck was I thinking? but he's doing good, and now he's a police officer up in Wisconsin, and he's the youngest of our six.
So that's what got you back to this area in North Carolina?
Well, this area, my daughter had a internship at the Charles George VA here, and after that year internship, they offered her a position. So that first Thanksgiving, I came down to visit, and a couple days, and I fell in love with the place. And then it took me 3 years after that to get back down. And at that time, I was working at Corning Community College and Elmira College up in upstate New York.
And so you came to this area about when? What year was that?
A little over 3 years ago. Yeah, it was 3 years this past July.
And so talk a little bit about then. So you wind up in Hendersonville, North Carolina, Western North Carolina. How did you then hook into this farm where you are now?
Somebody told me I should come visit it, and I did. And so I visited it on one day, and then I haven't stopped coming back since. And then later it was that they were looking for a new executive director, and with my background between higher education and the State Department, and just because anytime you're managing a nonprofit. So at the farm, when I'm taking people on tours, I'll tell them, or I'll ask them, have you ever seen Green Acres? And, if the younger folks, they don't know what I'm talking about, but other people do. And I'll say, I'm Mr. Douglas, because I'm still learning the agricultural side, but I had the business background, I had the marketing, I had the networking, I had everything but besides, I know that's corn, I know that's a potato. but there's so much more here. In fact, in one of our gardens, which is our medicinal herb garden, we have 68 different medicinal plants growing, and I know 5 of them by heart.
Well, you certainly, it seems like you certainly were at the right place, kind of at the right time. Because
yes,
I don't know the Veterans Healing Farm. Had this been in existence before you came here?
We are in our 10th year. It was started by John and Nicole Massey in 2013. And the mission today is to enhance the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of our nation's veterans and their families. And I stress and their families, because all of the organizations out there are doing wonderful things for the veteran organizations are doing wonderful things. But our philosophy was to make sure that the family member is included in everything else that the veteran would be included in, because the healing, it certainly happens individually, but within a family unit, the more we can engage with the entire family, the better it is for the veteran, for the family, going forward. And so that's been our philosophy.
And you have to love the term, Veterans Healing Farm. But for the benefit of the folks who don't know what it is and where it is, all that good stuff, could you kind of give me, I guess, the Reader's Digest version of what is the Veterans Healing Farm?
So I talked about our mission, and so the Veterans Healing Farm is located in Hendersonville, North Carolina. We're we're a total of about 9 acres. Of that, we farm 5 total. And to meet that mission of helping veterans and their families, we do that through 3 primary program areas, one being what we call agritherapy. And that is, so we have a large produce garden, and all the produce that we grow, in fact, anything that is produced on the farm, anybody that's out here working can take anything they want at any time. But because we're not a production farm, and the point is agritherapy, to have, 1, your hands in the dirt, and 2, working with alongside other veterans, and coming from that shared culture, that the excess is we don't sell that, we give it away. So we'll set up in front of the Charles George VA Medical Center in Asheville, and in fact, we were there 3 weeks ago, and we gave out 1,500 pounds of produce to about 170 caregivers, veterans, and their family members in front of the Charles George VA. And then we'll take it to another place called Veterans in Asheville, Veterans Restoration Quarters, which is a 180 bed, 200 bed, something like that, male veterans homeless shelter. And we give it there. We'll bring it back to Hendersonville, and we'll give it to Safe Light Women's Shelter, I Am Food Pantry, the Rescue Mission, the Store Warehouse, another food pantry. And these days, food insecurity is the highest that I've ever seen. Just the sheer cost of things today. So people that were eking by prior, now it's I've got to pay my electric bill, but I need food, so there's a lot of demand. So that's part of our agritherapy, is our main produce garden. We also have beekeeping, and right now we have probably a dozen people that are on the beekeeping squad, and our hives allow us. In fact, let me see if I can show you all up there. I know I'm going in the sun for a second.
By the way, as Al's setting up, I should just mention we're speaking to a representative from the Veteran Healing Farm, and he is Al Yeck. He's going to be taking us kind of on a mini tour here, which is really cool. And he's going to show you this facility in Hendersonville, North Carolina. A beautiful facility, Al, and I'm back to you.
So this is up here. You can see our hives. And this is like I said, we have 12 people. The lead beekeeper is Michael Morano, and Michael is a retired Coast Guard veteran, 22 years in the Coast Guard. And he just does a fantastic job with the bees and all the volunteers. And with that, that's where if anyone comes out here, they don't have to know how to garden. They don't have to know how to do anything. They just, if they want to participate, they're on the bee squad, and we'll show them what to do. So, we have our produce, we have our bee squad, and then we also have, I'll bring it back to me for a second, if I can. Oh, and that's just one of our fire pits in our rose garden. It's named after the founder's grandmother, who was Rose Massey. And it's just in the spring that those roses are just full and blooming. And our director of plant medicine, who I'll talk about a little bit more, Rebecca Van, she'll harvest the petals, and she recently made an artisan rose water that she then took and mixed with 2 gallons of our own honey, and as the basis for some of the tinctures that she makes. So, so we have I'm aware of the sun, so I'm trying to manipulate around where it's okay. And so our beekeeping, our produce, and then also within our agritherapy, we have 2 others. One is the medicinal herb squad, and that consists of, right now, I want to say there's 65 people signed up for it, but we'll have large numbers sign up, and then people come and go throughout the season. So maybe at any given time, we could have 20 of them out here working the medicinal herb garden. But in addition to tending to it, which are those 68 different medicinal plants, then they'll process it. So they'll take them, they'll dehydrate them, they'll use them for teas, tinctures, salves, balms, and all of that we give back to our veterans at no charge. Rebecca will also teach workshops, and that's another area I'll jump into. But workshops in using plant medicine for inflammation, for sleep disorder, for anxiety. Those are the big three for veterans. And our goal, we say, always work with your primary care provider. But if we can get you using plant medicine and one less pill from Pfizer,
Right.
hallelujah, hallelujah.
And
You
you've
know,
seen, no, I'll ask you in terms of folks who've gone this route, have you seen changes or have you seen how it helps?
oh, absolutely. Across the board. So what I'll do is I'll go beyond the specifics of the medicinal herb garden, but
Right.
just say the farm itself. It's a very peaceful place, and our philosophy is our philosophical foundation is safety. And when I say safety, I don't mean a physical safety. I mean a safety of come wherever you're at. There's no judgment. Just show up, and we'll go from there. And you don't have to do anything. You can be by yourself if you want. You can go to the other side, anywhere you want on the farm. And then after that, we lay the layer is peace, and that is just the peace of this place is incredible. Where we have a Shaw Stream that runs through it, we're well isolated with trees all around us, and it's a very quiet, peaceful place. The birds that are singing, we just cut down recently our sunflower labyrinth for the season, so we'll grow that back again next season. But and then after that, so we have safety, peace, and then we'll lay on the programming. And so I talked about the within agritherapy. The last one within agritherapy would be new this year, and it's our tomato team. And this is in the greenhouse. And we had a gentleman named Craig LaHoulier, who Craig is known as the North Carolina Tomato Man, and he named the Cherokee Purple Tomato. And he lives a mile down the road. And Craig came to the farm this year, and we started talking, and so he generously agreed to give his time and knowledge. So he taught tomato growing workshops for us, but also managed the tomato team, which was a veteran group that managed and took care of all the tomatoes in the greenhouse. Now, not just all the tomatoes. In our greenhouse, we have 115 tomato plants, and that is 115 different varieties of tomato plants. Each plant is a different variety that came from Craig's seeds. And Craig used to work for Big Pharma, but now he's using his science, or he has been, because he's always loved heirloom tomatoes, but he's using his science for the good of the people. Just a wonderful human being. So between our produce garden, our beehives, our medicinal herb garden, and our tomato team, that kind of rounds out our agritherapy. So that's one program. The next program,
let me just
Sure.
jump in here a second. I'm just listening to this, and even for you, this must have been a tremendous learning curve. In other words, you had the academic background, which I did too, but then to pick up all these other skills and knowledges, that must have been quite an experience for you.
I would say that the learning curve was more around just
We're losing you a little. We're losing you a little bit.
of the things, but because so the learning curve, there was some to some extent, but because I'm surrounded with such great people. So I've got Michael, who is a wonderful beekeeper. And so I don't worry about the bees. I've got Michael and his team. I've got Rebecca Van, who's a wonderful plant medicine person. So, and she has her team. So I don't worry about our medicinal garden. I've got Craig and the tomatoes. And I know there was one more that I missed, but so it's that kind of thing. So my learning curve, I would say that it's not so much a curve, because the learning continues for me on everything we do. And it's an enjoyable thing, but it's not a learning curve where it becomes something I need to quickly ramp up on as an expert, because I have the experts. So it's it's not so much a learning curve as a learning journey. And it's very enjoyable working with these wonderful people. Also at the farm, we have Megan Landreth, who is a Air Force veteran. 10 years in, and she was married to a retired Air Force veteran who passed away. So she is both an Air Force veteran and the widow of a veteran. And she is the farm administrator. So for our layout, when Megan and I are the only full-time employees year round. And then we have Rebecca Van, which director of plant medicine, Michael, who's the volunteer with the bees, and Dale Billings, or Robert Billings Jr. And he is a retired Air Force veteran also, special services in the Air Force. So had quite a few 11 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he brings his dog Sky, a shepherd, who is also a veteran, here to the farm. And he is our he's our agricultural guy. He's our seasonal part-time grounds manager. And I tell people when they see the produce, I say, this is Dale and God that did this. And so he's been a tremendous asset. And then we have Samantha Raff, who is our flower manager, because in the produce garden, we also have 2 dedicated rows of flowers that we grow, again, to take to the Charles George VA. And that's a place, or other places will ask us for flowers at times. But the employees at the VA so love the flowers. It truly brightens up their day. So we've continued that program, and so Sam is seasonal for that. And then we have another gentleman, Dave Shimmick, and Dave takes care of our roses. And so everyone but Megan and I are part-time seasonal. So as we wind the year up, I'd say by the beginning of December, we'll be looking at it'll really come down to Megan and I for a few months until we start up again.
And talk about the process, Al, if I can just jump in here a second.
Sure.
So if anybody's watching this, we're going to encourage them to come to the facility. We'll talk about that as well. But they can also volunteer, and talk about what people do to volunteer and what you're looking for in terms of work with volunteers.
Volunteering. So volunteering can be any of the squads that we have on the farm. So the produce garden, the bees, the tomato team, the medicinal herb garden. So all of that is available to volunteer to. Oh, hold on just a second, Michael. And I've talked about Michael Morano. Right. So this is the infamous, world famous, super sweet guy, Michael Morano, 22 years Coast Guard veteran, and our lead beekeeper.
Oh boy, I have a lot to live up to.
Right, and he's only spoken good things about you, so that's good too.
I've only spoken good things about you.
Oh, so. Thank you. Don't tell him the rest of the story.
All right. So I'm actually doing a podcast right now.
Oh,
so
cool.
I saw you going by, so I wanted to say hi.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. So in addition to and
the volunteering we were talking about.
So the people that we have here, and then how to volunteer.
Please.
So our veterans with an S, veteranshealingfarm.org. And when you go there, that'll have information about volunteering. It'll have information about the farm. It'll have our workshops and our events that are coming up, which are the other 2 programs I'll still cover, and other things. So that's veteranshealingfarm.org, on Facebook, Facebook/Veterans Healing Farm.
How many volunteers do you have typically?
We on our list right now, we have 180 volunteers, which are made up of veterans, family members, caregivers, and volunteers. But I've never, it's only been, there's very few of our volunteers that aren't family members already. In fact, I've had one person that apologized to me because that none of her family served, and she was so sincere with that, and I was like, no, please don't think that way. You're here serving now. So and we love her, and so it's open for that community, so that they can volunteer for any of the teams, or every once in a while we'll have events that we need help with, parking, things like that. So there's a variety of back office type things. So there's a variety of things that people can do, and we're always looking for help.
And you were telling Al, I think I cut you off.
There's a car going by. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So talk also about the the programs you were saying, and you have some upcoming stuff happening. What's that all about?
So I talked about the agritherapy. Our two other programs. One is workshops. So the workshops we do are equine therapy, canine therapy, music therapy, lens neurofeedback therapy. So we either will have things that are actual therapies or therapeutic workshops like canning vegetables, jam making, growing mushrooms, backyard chickens, art workshops, a variety of different art workshops. We have plan identification, and this is where we're drawing upon existing organizations to come in and teach it here to our veterans. So it's been a wonderful community building with those workshops. And last year we also started suicide prevention workshops, and with those we open it up to the entire community, because while veterans are disproportionately affected by the suicide rates, it's a crisis in this whole country. And so I want everyone to have the skills to at least engage on that initial talk with somebody, because how it is today, you'll see somebody, if you don't have any training and you think they're down, and you'll say, hey, are you okay? And they'll go, yeah. And then you go, well, let me know if I can help. And because you don't know how to engage. So one is a 2-hour workshop, question, persuade, and refer. And the other is a 1-day mental health first aid class. And again, they're open up to everyone, not just our veteran community, anyone in Western North Carolina. We want them to come because, like I said, it is a crisis across this country. And everyone, just like learning CPR or the Heimlich or anything else that's first aid, the mental health should be learned also, both whether it's at the home, the community, or the business level. And so that's a big one for us. So that's our work.
Those workshops, are they held at the farm here, and you have a building for that?
Yes, we have. I'll walk up there in a little bit. We have a covered deck for our workshops, and then we have an open part of the deck, which you can see in the back as I'm talking. But yeah, I've got to say all of them. But I think we just recently got on the grid with Duke. Before that, we had solar power. So we had a workshop, I want to say in this February, and our batteries were dead, but we were able to use a community building for that. But otherwise, yeah, everything we do is here at the farm. So that's our workshops. Now events, which would be the last of our 3 programming, over Memorial Day weekend, this past Memorial Day week fair. And this year we more than doubled attendance. So we had over 700 people on the farm, with 35 organizations that provide services to veterans. So we had organizations like PGA Hope, which will give veterans golf lessons. And then at the end of the 7 weeks, they'll give them a set of clubs if they don't have clubs.
How cool.
We have Hook, Line, and Heroes, an organization that'll, you want to take your veteran friend fishing, but they live in Kansas. Well, they'll find a guide in Kansas to take your veteran friend fishing on behalf of you. And just a ton of organizations all like that, doing wonderful things. So that was then. We also had a wellness retreat as an event. Throughout the summer, we have live bands on the stage behind us once a month. And then coming up in November is the Traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall. And that'll be out here at the farm. And we're November 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that covers November 10th, which is the Marine Corps birthday. And that's the emblem if you folks out there don't know. and the 11th, which is Veterans Day. So we'll have the wall out here. Now, during that time, we'll also have brothers and sisters like these, which started at the Charles George VA Medical Center here as a Vietnam veteran therapy writing group, because they couldn't talk about their experiences. So, but they learned how to write them. And then once they accomplished that, then they started doing public readings of their stories. And that first Memorial Day, when we had the resource fair, our first resource fair, we had 14 veterans on stage from Vietnam through Afghanistan telling their stories out to an audience of 100 plus people in lawn chairs, just listening to every word. It was just spectacular. So they'll be here while the wall's here, Vietnam veterans only, reading their stories on one of the days. And then we have Bullets and Band-Aids, another organization that pairs veteran stories with artists. and then the artist will create, whether it's on canvas or a sculpture or whatever medium, that veteran's story. And so they do. First time I saw them, it was the veterans from on display. World War II veterans on up were on display of their stories through bullets and band-aids. So they'll be out here all 4 days with 20 plus Vietnam veteran story artworks on display on our covered deck. And then lastly, we'll have Quilts of Valor, who make quilts, and we'll be awarding a dozen quilts to a dozen Vietnam veterans here. So that'll be that 4 days in addition to the wall.
Now, all these events are on the website as well?
Yes, we have a calendar, an event calendar, and that has all our workshops and events coming up.
Do you have a mailing list also there, or people want to get sent information? Do you do that at all?
There's a way. So once you go to the website, it's sign up for our newsletter. We send out one a month.
Okay.
This month I'm sending two. One is the entire newsletter, and one is just specific to that suicide prevention class, to make sure that I pull that out and flag it to everybody. But otherwise, yeah, it's very unspammy. Just one a month, and it's events and things that are coming up that people would be interested in coming to the farm for.
And the cool thing I'm hearing what you're saying is that a couple of things, but one is that certainly if you're a veteran, you should come by and sign up and find out about all the cool stuff you're doing. I mean, that's kind of a given. And then also, as you mentioned, so this is also available to the family, friends, caregivers, anybody who works with veterans. They should touch base with you folks.
Oh, absolutely. And there's times where it's understandably hard for the veteran to come out here. But if their family members start out here, and then could be a few weeks, a month, but then the veteran will come out with their family members. And what if I can get somebody out here once, the likelihood of them returning is tremendous. And so we always say that we win by ones, one at a time. So I'm not looking for a platoon of people to show up. If I can get one person out here that's new and benefits from it, then it's a win for everyone at the farm and all the other veterans at the farm.
And Al, again, for those who don't know where you're located, you're in Hendersonville. Where in Hendersonville? We
are at 38 Yale, like the university, Road, Hendersonville, North Carolina, right off of 64. So we're literally 10 minutes from downtown Hendersonville, but we're one row of houses back from 64, the main drag, and it's just enough with the trees and everything. There's people who have been here for years, and I mean, just all around us, and never knew we existed. Which I'm trying to, get the word out more. But it was to the isolation or the beautiful peacefulness of the location.
And you're certainly doing a good job today getting the word out on the Blaine's World podcast. So that's certainly a way to other people can find out about you. And Al, once again, the website as well, please. Your website. The website. Veterans with an S. Healing.
Yes. So it's
how do you repeat that? We lost it a little bit. I'm
plural,
sorry.
Healingfarm.org.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for being. I'd like to thank
veterans.
Gotcha. Okay. I'd like to thank you for being my guest, Al Yeck, on this Blaine's World podcast. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, for arranging this podcast. And you got me excited about it. Beautiful facility. And thanks for the tour. Hopefully we'll actually get to meet one time in person.
Blaine, thank you for having me. And if we had another hour and professional video and satellite connections, I would show you the entire farm. So this is just a blink of the eye of what's here. So yeah, anybody, and when you're in the area, please come out and visit. And I look forward to all of our other folks out there that are seeing this now to come and check out the farm too. Okay, well, thank you much. And stay with me. I'm just going to sign off, and we'll have a minute or two afterwards to wrap up. So thanks, Al. Speak to you soon.